Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has given us unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure or admire an old one. What will we find today? Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
I know we left Peter drowning in the Sea of Galilee yesterday, but we know he'll be okay, right? His fear of his circumstances caused him to sink, but he knew where to turn. He didn't attempt to swim back to the boat, though we know he could swim. He didn't holler, "Guys, throw me a line." No, he turned to the one who had been responsible for him being out there in the first place, Jesus. He cried, "Lord, save me." It says immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Jesus had not called Peter to walk on the water to let him drown. Just like God didn't send the plagues to get Israel out of Egypt, just to allow them to be attacked beside the Red Sea or to die of hunger and thirst in the wilderness. But I love how Jesus rescued him first and rebuked him second. He didn't stand there with his hands on his hips lecturing Peter while he floundered in the water. He immediately stretched out his hand and pulled him up. The next verse says, "And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased." But what happened between verses 31 and 32? It seems like Peter and Jesus walked back to the boat together. So maybe Peter got to walk on the water some more, do you think? But this time, fear couldn't touch him because he was safely arm in arm with Jesus. In the previous story about the scary storm on the Sea of Galilee, Jesus had ordered the wind and waves, "Peace, be still." He rebuked the wind and waves. This time he didn't have to say anything. All that wind that had frightened Peter, at Jesus' cue, just stopped. It was as if the wind had been working with Jesus to teach Peter and the other disciples a lesson. The lesson was over, so the wind stopped. Have you ever thought about this? All those circumstances in our lives that we fear may be sent by the enemy to scare us, or they may be working with God to teach us. So what did they teach Peter? What could he and the other disciples look back on later that would strengthen them and give them courage in their ministry? Well, sometimes God purposefully sends us into storms where our circumstances threaten to overwhelm us. But then He's there with us, doing the impossible. And when He commands us to do the impossible with Him, we know we can depend on His strength to do it. They also learn that when you stay in the boat, you don't get to do the impossible. Don't you think the other disciples wished they'd been the ones to volunteer? They didn't get to experience it. They only got to watch. They learned that when we take our eyes off of Jesus and look on our circumstances, we will fail. If we start to fear our circumstances more than we trust Jesus, then down we go. But when we fail, and we will fail often, God will gladly deliver us, pick us up with His mighty hand, and guide us. And all of this is to strengthen our faith and let us become even more certain of who God is. At the end of the passage, the disciples worshiped Jesus and confessed, "Truly, you are the Son of God." This was all a lesson for them and for us to learn and look back on. How does this story strengthen your faith? What lessons has God taught you personally when you got out of the boat?
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the treasures God has given you through His Word. You can listen to other episodes on our website, which you can find in the description below. Thank you for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.